I would like to talk about my experience organizing theater performances for students and teachers based on Nassim Suleymanpour's play White Rabbit, Red Rabbit. I've been following Nassim Suleymanpour's experiences in theater and its production for several years now, and I have been fascinated by his view on theater as an experiment. And I thought that this is very similar to what we are doing at the classes, because every classroom theater performance is unexpected and unpredictable, because every time we get different students, different interests. So I thought that there is a parallel between what he is doing in his writing and his plays to what we are doing as teachers in classroom. The first play that I paid attention to and sort of selected for teaching purposes was White Rabbit, Red Rabbit. That play caught my attention because it was written for an actor who does not know the play. So the whole setting was as follows, that the actor, there's just one actor chosen for that performance, and the actor receives the play in an envelope. The actor has not read the play before the performance. So on the stage, with all the audience watching, the actor receives the envelope, opens it, and starts reading. And in the play, Suleymanpour explains how the actor and how the audience will play out his story. So there are instructions. He says when to laugh, when to applaud, when to act, when to choose. And the audience gets more and more involved in different parts. So some members of audience become actors and move onto the stage. The others are discussing the possible solutions to different problems that the playwright has provided for them. And gradually the whole audience gets involved and becomes part of the play. So I could not, of course, get the play because it's kept a secret, so that we can always preserve this surprise moment when the actors receive the play. But I invented a similar version for our classroom. So what I normally do is I divide the class into two parts, or three, or four, if there are many of them, and each part or each group has to write a play for the other group. I tell them the story about Suleymanpour and his life in Iran, and how he cannot escape. At the time when he was writing the play, he couldn't get out of the country, so instead he just sent out this play to the audiences, and he was sort of talking to the audiences. So I do the same, I tell the story, and then I ask the students to write a play for the other group. And they find out what it is that they have to perform only when they are in front of the class. So I have done now this activity with three different groups. The first time when I tried it out was for a teacher training event within Erasmus framework. We had teachers from Romania and Italy and France, and Some of them knew English pretty well, but there was a large group of Romanian teachers who were teaching computer sciences and mathematics, but whose English wasn't so good and they couldn't follow my lecture about teacher training. So somehow they couldn't participate. So I tried out this activity as a last resort, hoping that it will allow them to get involved. And actually it did work much better than I expected, because the group that wrote the play for that group took into account the fact that they didn't know English and wrote sort of a non-verbal play where they had to stretch the rope and decide which team was strongest. And as a result, all the men who had been so bored during the lecture and couldn't follow really what was happening, all of a sudden were so much involved and so interested in what was happening. And also the other group, who was sort of resenting them a bit that they didn't participate so well, all of a sudden they appreciated the other group so well. So I was pretty pleased with the effects, and so I decided to try it out also with Latvian teachers, as we were conducting a seminar for how to use drama in language teaching, and we decided that this white rabbit, red rabbit approach could be used also for teacher training for language teachers. Now, to my surprise, it didn't work out so well, because some of the teachers, although their English was excellent, obviously hadn't had any background in playing, performing as a theatre performance. And as a result, they didn't know how to write a play. Somehow they wrote a story. And I had several groups of teachers who wrote stories. And then afterwards we discussed how this activity could work with them at school. And they said, yes, this is a very good activity, but the students should be trained how to write plays. And I think that those teachers are right. I think that the students should start with exploring how to write drama, how to write plays, what they look like, maybe do some reading of plays before they start writing themselves. So I guess that this activity could be developed into a larger, not just one-off activity, but actually should be prepared, not staged. I think that this moment of surprise has to be cherished, and the students shouldn't be performing only after some kind of preparation and rehearsal period. But I think that it's also a good idea to have some training in playwriting and maybe listening to some plays also as they are done. So the last experience I had was with bachelor students in the Faculty of Humanities at Latvia University, where we were also discussing how to use different kinds of materials in language teaching, and we tried out this approach where students would be writing the plays for each other. Here I found out that although the students hadn't had proper training in writing plays or performing much, nevertheless they enjoyed themselves thoroughly, and they wrote very interesting both verbal and non-verbal plays, and really enjoyed that. So after those three experiences, one with an international teacher training group, one with a local English language teachers training group, and one with the bachelor's students, I think that this activity can be used for different kinds of audiences, and it can be useful for all of them, but I think it should be adapted maybe when the language level is not so high, or maybe the people haven't had any experience in playing theatre and participating in dramatic activities. So, so far, I think that I will go on using in my teaching this kind of activity, but I'm also very interested in Suleymanpur's later play, where he is experimenting not only with a written play, where he got rid of the director and setting, but he kept the actor. But now he has produced a new play, which I just found out about. He has written, or rather not written, he has recorded, audio recorded a play, sort of a play, or rather instructions for people how to play blind Hamlet. So I haven't had any experience with this, I just started reading about it, but I think it would be really interesting when students could record instructions for each other how to play theatre, and then that audio recording, the voice would be played and the audience would be following the direction. So I'm very interested now, and I would like to work a bit with this blind Hamlet's idea.